just kind of wondering, like, what your creative process is. Like, who brings the ideas in, and like, does everybody contribute? Do you come in with like a riff and just kind of add on to that, or like, what do you do?
Exactly.
The whole writing process for Queensryche is basically everybody contributing their ideas, and sometimes they just start out as a riff, a guitar riff, or lyrics. But most of the time, because we all have Pro Tools, we get some kind of demo song, and that's kind of the whole the start of a Queensryche song. And then it just goes through stages, and it develops, and it gets critiqued, and lots of emails going back and forth, and then eventually we mold something that's representative of Queensryche.
How much did Pink Floyd influence the song Silent Lucidity, if they did at all?
Silent Lucidity.
Yeah, Silent Lucidity, sorry.
Easy for you to say.
Well, Pink Floyd is a big influence of Queensryche. And actually, the fans kind of think Queensryche is the Pink Floyd of heavy metal sometimes. So, but generally, it's kind of encompasses all of our influences, but that one just kind of lends in that direction.
So I wanted to ask Todd, if you could choose one organization or movement to advocate for, what would it be and why?
Wow. That's a really good question. Obviously, well,
legalize marijuana in Pennsylvania, maybe?
I mean, I'm a huge animal lover. I'm a huge animal lover. So, I have a rescue dog, and so anything that would help stop animal abuse and taking care of animals. I'm a huge animal lover, so that would probably be my first choice.
My question was for Eddie, and it was, if you could eat hoagies with any band, what band would it be?
Hoagies?
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's the best question I've ever heard.
Oh, jeez. I don't know. There's so many bands I would love to eat a hoagie with. I can't really single. Yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, there's just too many bands out there that
like hoagies.
That like, well, right.
I think the underlying reason was because we're serving hoagies for lunch, but I could be wrong. Where is Rob?
How about Queensryche? There we go.
How do you approach making records today versus when the budgets were in the 6 to 7 figure category?
Very carefully. It's more of this is a modern age. There's like I said before, we all have computers with Pro Tools systems on, so you get a lot of the initial work kind of pre-done, and these days you can do most of the recording on your own personal studio, so that brings the budget way down. We usually rent out a big room for drums, and that's usually the biggest expense as far as the production cost, and everything else is kind of overdubs are subbed out into like smaller places, sometimes our homes, sometimes rehearsal halls, but generally the budgets have shrunken, and so you just have to be wise with your money, because sometimes the producer eats up a big portion of that, and then what's left is kind of what the startup is for your tour. So it's really a mathematical game to try and just figure out what you actually get to keep out of that recording budget.
So to expand on that, a lot of bands these days are doing like the Kickstarter or Pledge Music thing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I guess we've seen the sites, and I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's a good idea to embrace the modern age of promotion and marketing, and I think it's the situation with money and loans and everything. I think it's kind of a cool idea.
I mean, a guy actually started a Kickstarter campaign where he wanted to raise $50 to get his house cleaned. And by the time the Kickstarter campaign was over, he had $5,000. So I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it.
His house must be really clean.
That's what I was thinking.
So Mara asked, when did you start playing the drums?
Well, I started playing drums, guitar at 10 years old. And at 13 years old, my dad bought me my first drum set. And so that was my life. I wanted to be a famous rock metal drummer. And so I played drums, well, I'm 40 years old now. And so I played all through the 90s, late 80s, and all through the 90s in a band in St. Petersburg, Florida. And then did my own songwriting and everything. And then basically joined a three-piece cover band. I live in Florida where it's sunshine and palm trees, so there's all kinds of beach bars. And I was playing drums, just doing that kind of music for fun, just to keep my chops up. But 13 is when I started, and that's always been that was my initial passion. You know, even when we play on stage, I'll go up to the drum set, and Scotty always have sticks for me, and he lets me bang away on cymbals and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm still very much a drummer, you know, on top of singing. So
I had heard that you were not confident in your singing abilities when you first started, always backing vocals but
That's
never
true.
lead. What changed?
I never sang for a band before 2009 or 10. I was just the guy that sang in my car or in the house or in the shower, just, you know, and my drums were my blanket. So I never had the confidence, because you feel very naked and exposed out front with a microphone. Everyone's looking at you. And my personality in my real life is kind of introverted. I'm a hermit at home. I don't really go out much. And so, but I've been playing on stages since I was about 14 or 15 years old. So I was very comfortable with the stage and an audience. But yeah, I never really felt like I was a good enough singer. But then I would hear other people sing, and I would be like, well, I can do that. Or, you know, I was a big Bruce Dickinson fan and Rob Halford fan, so a lot of my screams and the more metal side was more in that gritty kind of vein. And so when I joined the band Crimson Glory, that was my first time really singing for a band, and it really groomed me well for this transition, which I had no idea would be on the horizon. So I feel very comfortable and at home. You know, it's a good question. It's a fair question. I'm very self-critical, way more than anyone could probably ever be towards me. So,
he really misses playing drums, because as he sings Queen of the Reich every night, you can also see him air drumming at the same time. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, I will field this question to either Michael or you, whoever wants to answer it. I know that you met out at the conference in LA at NAMM. The meeting was a little awkward at first because there was a little mistaken identity. Who wants to talk about that little story?
I can tell it. So we were at a Seymour Duncan private artist dinner party, and I was a guest of a friend of mine. And so I went up to the buffet table, and there was Michael. You know, there's Duff McKagan, there's Yngwie Malmsteen, there's Warren DeMartini. And so I'm putting food on my plate, and I see him, and I just quickly looked at him, and I just said, "Oh, great show last night." And he kind of looked at me like what? And then I looked back again, and he was, perplexed. And I said, "Yeah, last night at the Grove." Well, I saw the band Testament. I'm a huge Testament fan. And for a brief second, I thought he was Eric Peterson, the guitarist for Testament. And then I looked at him again, and I went, "Oh," I said, I very much know who you are. I'm terribly sorry. Anyway, and so that was how we actually were introduced to each other, was my mistake.
Actually, for all of you, what do you think your best gig and your worst gigs were?
Wow. We've had so many great gigs in the 30 plus years that we've done. It's hard to say. I mean, there's been just some great festivals that we've been to, and
a lot of the worst gigs we encounter usually are we deal with technical issues, and can be very stressful. You've got a guitar amp that blows up, in the middle of the show, or the vocals cut, in the middle of a show. So, but most of the time, not to say that, that is part of touring. It's going to happen. But those are the things that we kind of stress on every once in a while, making sure everything works every night.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. You guys are working on new material, correct?
That is correct.
When we're going to see new music?
We're hoping springtime, late spring.
Do you have a label deal?
Yes.
And is it Century Media Records?
That is correct.
That's awesome. And thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.